This week, I'm thrilled to be joined by Richard Evans, who is currently Executive Commercial Director for NHS Supply Chain. Richard has a procurement leadership career spanning 20 plus years across both public and private sector, covering value delivery, supply chain assurance, and transformation. Richard started out on the IBM graduate scheme in the late 90s and worked for the likes of Asda, William Hill, Proxima, before joining NHS Supply Chain, overseeing over 500 people across the commercial function. Today, we'll be discussing Richard's transition from consultancy into NHS and what key challenges and opportunities are facing the NHS at the moment. We'll also be discussing what Richard looks for when hiring talent within his team. So, let's start today's show. Well, Richard, thank you so much for joining me on the Talent Talks podcast. Great to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Martin. Pleasure to be here, actually, on a rainy Friday.
On a rainy Friday, yeah. Same down here in Dorset. So I guess for you, you've covered a real diverse range of industry sectors, but I'm really interested around that transition that you've had recently from the consultancy world into NHS Supply Chain. How have you found that transition in?
It's been remarkably easy, and I don't mean the job's easy. What I mean is it's been remarkably easy because as I was considering my options having left Proxima, I realised the thing that mattered to me right now was purpose. And obviously when this role came up, I struggled to think of a job that probably had any more of that behind it, any more purpose than this role. And that's the thing that's made it easy to go into, because it's something I really wanted to do, and it's an organisation, the type of organisation I really wanted to get into. If I think past the sort of that side of things and what it felt like to me, the other piece is obviously NHS Supply Chain is in a transformation. So having existed for a long time in various guises, the most recent being them insourcing what were called towers into one organisation commercially, it's a transformation journey it's on. And actually at Proxima, what I'd been doing for the majority of my 7 years there was helping large organisations transform. And in that role, we were very active in the transformation itself, not just giving advice from the outside. And ultimately, now I'm getting my hands dirty, right, is what I'm doing. Because the org structure had been done, but actually all the people, processes, governance, policy, all those other things that sit there as kind of true procurement transformation, operating model transformation needed to be done. And the other bit is, those who know me, I'm a people collaboration person, right? That's when I'd done my early training at IBM in the late 90s, early 2000s in how to procure and do the right thing. Actually, I realised it was all about people and collaboration. And that's the other thing this role demanded of me. I've got a very sizable, several hundred people directorate within NHS Supply Chain, and these people needed some people management and some collaboration. And that's really how we've achieved so much in 3 days shy of 6 months in the job. We've really stepped forward in terms of the people engagement piece. But yeah, we've also made progress on some basic stuff, but it's just having that people and collaboration at its heart, really. So yeah, people, one of the famous, I was saying to my boss, Andrew, the other day, people keep asking me, am I okay? And I go, I am okay, because of the things I've just told you. It's a great place to work. We're absolutely got so much in front of us and so much opportunity. We already deliver so much for the NHS. As part of the NHS, we still already deliver so much, but there's so much more to go at, So no, it's great.
And how do you find, because your end customer is your patients that need care.
Yeah.
This isn't sort of some of the clients which you'd work with at Proxima or Asda, where the customers are people there going buying food and stuff. Mm-hmm. This is, these are people that in some cases seriously ill, and so it's so critical, the supply chain and what you're sort of delivering to them.
Yeah.
How do you find that? I guess on an emotional level as well as a professional level, that must be tough.
Go back to the point. The purpose means we get a certain kind of person working in NHS Supply Chain, right? Yeah. You don't join if that doesn't matter to you. Now, you could argue, who does it not matter to? Because ultimately we're all potential customers, right, of the health system. And it is great. It is great because I don't have to tell anybody in my organisation why they turn up every day. I've got to give them the belief and make it easier and let them enjoy the job more. That's my job, right? But to your point, I've had to deal with it and almost acknowledge it as being really important, but put it to the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Because you can't let the fact that you're buying pacemakers, pillows for premature babies, do you know what I mean? You can't let that cloud the decision making and what you've got to do for the right patient clinical outcome, while still being commercially correct.
Do you have to just on that point? Do you have to take emotion out of it then a little bit, or is it? Or is that what you're saying? You're sort of saying it's just part of the process.
You have to use it in the right way, right?
Right.
So as I say, I don't have to tell people, so I don't have to use it there. But sometimes when maybe we're not considering the patient as the first point in everything, it's all about patient outcomes. It's all about patient pathways and clinical work that all the teams in the NHS are doing. So occasionally you just have to bring it back to that's what we're here to do and listen to that voice. And I think that's the bit I bring across from the retail side of my career, where the customer was king. Do you know what I mean? And really emphasising that. The only surprise to me, it wasn't quite as prevalent in words as I would have expected. So it's almost implied. So that purpose almost implies that people are focused on the customer. But in the last 6 months that I've been here, the first 6 months I've been here, it's risen in terms of words being used in day-to-day life. And we are all, I keep using the word acutely and then get told that's a very medical word, but we're acutely aware that is why we're here and that's what we do. But it is, everybody uses the NHS. We all have people using the NHS every day. My son was born with a foot condition, do you know what I mean? So he relied on the NHS as a baby. And we all have these little stories. And now my teams are buying this stuff. My dad had a stent fitted just a week or so ago. He's fine, but he had a stent fitted. I'm going, well, that's what my team buy. Yeah. That's like crazy. Sometimes it is just crazy what we do.
Was that what sort of drew you in to working for the NHS Supply Chain?
Yeah, 100%. Go back. Yeah, it's that purpose. As I say, I wanted a job with more purpose. I had worked at Proxima with a few public sector organisations, and whether it's local councils, whether it was the guys at Sellafield or whatever like that, we'd done all these pieces of work. And you do go, that's got a bit more meaning behind it. But then, as I say, when this job came up, I went, struggle to think of a job with more purpose than working for the health system. Yeah. It really was that. Was that in the end.
What do you find is sort of the challenges in your role? You know, if you think at the moment and the challenges we're having, you know, in our country, in the general infrastructure we have here in the public sector services, what do you see as your biggest challenges at the moment?
Well, I've already alluded to, as an organisationally, my biggest challenge is to bring these people together. So they previously were 8 different organisations doing a good job, right? Doing exactly what the NHS and the NHS Supply Chain needed them to do. We've in-housed them. We've got this phrase, one NHS Supply Chain. So we're very much about bringing the whole NHS Supply Chain organisation together. So that's one of the biggest challenges. Obviously, it's well publicised, the pressures the NHS is under, and we have such a role to play in that. We're buying billions of items and services for them, and we need to approach it in new ways. There's a phrase within the NHS, value-based procurement, which is really looking at, it's doing that true cost commercial analysis that says it's not just this thing I'm buying, it's how it's used, where it's used, how many times it's used, when it's disposed of. It's the whole life cost piece of it. So one of my tasks is to bring that about and sort of allow my commercial team that space and time to have that mindset and think that way. And it's almost flipping it round from having all the customer engagement at the end when we're about to launch a new contract, actually flipping it to the front end and engaging everybody up that front end, which we all know in the theoretical world of procurement is the right time in category strategies and category management to do that work. But we've got to flip that on its head and do that engagement up front, because we've got a new exec clinical director within NHS Supply Chain as well. And she's really bringing a strong voice through that my teams need to cotton onto and use. All the clinical colleagues we've got within our organisation to go, right, how is this used? What does it do? Where does it go? Do you know what I mean? To begin to challenge from the source, I guess, of what we're buying.
it's a very different dynamic, isn't it, as you alluded to earlier, because you're not having to sell in this role. If you think about, again, your consultancy days, you're selling your service, the capability you can deliver, etc. But it's there. The NHS, that's not part of your role, as you said. It's that purpose-led, making sure you've got the quality of the products you're providing for your patients, etc. It's a very different world to what you've previously done. Has it taken you a while? 6 months in, has it taken you a while to adjust to that different way that procurement's kind of needed and how it services the business?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, look, we all of our teams in supply chain work really hard, but there's obviously, we're going back to the retail, there's times you let people down, and that's not good enough, right? And we know that's not good enough, and we're facing into a lot of those things. We've got system modernisation, network modernisation, all these things that we need to do. But what I've said to my commercial team is we've also, as I've alluded to, we need to change kind of how we operate and how we think about value. Well, if we do that, that adds value anyway, whether we do all these other infrastructure things to improve as well. Actually, we can do that. I mean, I was really lucky when I interviewed, I sort of asked the interview panel if I do get the job to share information in advance to let me on board. I was lucky because I was taking some time out, having left Proxima before joining. So I got that information. Andrew and the other exec that I spoke to afforded me that luxury, so I could deal with almost where they'd been. So my view of how we've managed to, how I've managed to get my head around it, but also how hopefully my team would say they've managed to sort of receive me, is that I get that, but we're not there anymore. We're going there. We're going forward, and that's been absolutely my focus. Is we've all been where we are. You've all been insourced, and I know that's been the process it's been. But we're going forward, and this is the vision, and this is the place we're going to. And isn't that a more exciting place to be?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, again, it was that early information helped me a lot. I've got relatives of mine and people I know who work in the NHS, so I'd canvass them for what really goes on, so I know how it is and I know how it operates. So yeah, it also helped having a team meeting on the second hour of my first day with my direct reports, and suddenly I was thrown straight into it. But that's how I believe I was afforded that by having that previous information. So even from the first few hours, I kind of thought, I kind of know what's going on here.
Yeah. And how do you, from a prioritization on your day to day, because you've got there's over 500 plus people in the commercial team, I believe, there. And, there's a lot of people. I know you don't directly line manage all of them. You've obviously got your leadership team underneath. Could you imagine? That's a very flat structure. But no, in terms of that, you've obviously got your large commercial team. But how do you prioritize your day? Yeah.
Well, I'm very lucky. I've got a number of direct reports who work under me. I've got the category leaders, category directors and heads of category. They manage the day-to-day medical category stuff. We've got some indirect stuff supporting our own team. And then we've got some shared services. So actually, we operate, okay? So I don't really have to get involved in it. Most of my job really is hearing from the team issues. It's interesting you say I don't line management. I don't, but I do actually say to them on every call, you reach out to me if you spot something that's not right. Come and tell me. And then what we do is we prioritise the next 5 things we're going to solve, and we move through the 5 things into another 5 things, because actually it's the smaller things that really make a difference. I've alluded to the fact that I do have a strategy, and it's a very basic, obvious strategy, which is people first, ways of working second, data and technology third, and then we'll make more value and deliver more value in the 4th bucket after that. But that's just something to have in the background, you know what I mean? Actually, what we actually change and do, and we can tag them to each of those 4 headings, that's what really makes difference. So in terms of prioritising, it's all about the little things, really, for me. I'm obviously a member of the exec, and as I say, we are stepping this business forward and making changes that are needed for us to be more modern, more supportive of the customer and deliver those better patient outcomes. So I spend a lot of time with the exec making sure we are steering the business in the right direction, championing commercial, but also then bringing it back into the director and saying, right, this is where we need to go. This is what we need to do. I actually realised the other day, by the way, it is actually 700 people, because we have 2 outsourced partners who do food and facilities on the side, and they themselves have 200 people in their organisation supporting us. And it's like, okay, this is
just add another layer in.
Yeah. But the numbers, again, people are quite taken aback by the numbers, but the vast amount of what we do and the processes and procedures and governance and legislation and regulation we have to deal with, there's a reason for it, right? And some of this stuff is really specialist, and you need to have a specialist knowledge. So I'm lucky in my organisation, I have clinical people sat in commercial, which as a procurement person through and through, I've always wanted my tech specialist sat alongside me, never mind in the same organisation. So we are so blessed to have those people in the actual function itself, which makes the team's jobs even more easy. Well, not easy, but fulfilling, I suppose.
Yeah, and have that sort of joined up approach. I remember Andrew, you referred to who's your boss, I believe. Andrew New, is that?
Andrew,
So I remember him speaking at the Procurement Supply Chain live event a couple of years ago, and he was saying no year's going to be different again. We're not, because we talk about every year there's change in the landscape, geopolitical changes, etc. And he said in this his opening line, I loved it. He was so right. He was just like, no year is going to be the same. So us in NHS Supply Chain are going to have to be adaptable and agile all the time. So I guess adding that in, that's part of your role, Richard, isn't it? You're constantly adapting to changes and demands that are, the more pressure that has been well publicised on the NHS. That must be tough to be managing that and having to be presumably very agile in your approach.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, I mean, I've got an IT background, so the word agile makes me go, whoa.
Oh, okay.
But no, it's fine. No, we do. I mean, it is the one thing I have promised my team. The other thing I've said to my director is my job is all this change that we need to do is to make it an evolution, not something that's big and horrible. Because you often hear the phrase change fatigue. And you get change fatigue by doing change in the wrong way or trying to do too much or too big stuff. And as I've already said, a lot of what we need to change is little turns of dials. Yes, if you put them all together, it's a big change. But actually, if we just keep doing little ones and make it manageable, that's kind of what we need to do. So there is, I mean, on the other side of that, there's a hell of a lot of development and innovation coming through in healthcare. And that's one of the challenges. We've got to be better at embracing that. And it's not that we don't want to, it's just how do you do that within the commercial processes that we have to do. So again, one of the pieces of work around the value-based procurement item I mentioned before is we've done a lot to create a tool and look at how we prioritise so we can get after the right things. Because again, that's my job, is to look at everything going on. The business has priorities, I have, and the director have priorities, and how do you match the two and still deliver the day job? So yeah, and I'm trying to take mine and my leadership team, the sort of 7 or 8 who report to me, that's our job, is to take that away from the people doing the job, let them get on and be brilliant at what they do and make their jobs more enjoyable and give them the empowerment and all those things, and then deal with all this prioritization and agility that needs to go on.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I mean, there's as I said at the front, there's a lot to do, but it is really about prioritizing.
Quick break from the episode. I hope you're enjoying today's show. To keep up to date with our Talent Talks podcast episodes, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. This will help build our audience and our mission to raise the profile of procurement. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. And from a people side, I mean, you talked earlier about having, being very purpose-led. You're clearly going to need to be have empathy to work in the the NHS. What other skills do you look for in a commercial individual when you're looking to sort of hire? And I guess not just taking current role, I guess holistically in your career today.
Yeah. What
does talent look like for you, Richard?
It's a broad thing, isn't it? Talent can mean so many things. If I think about it, if I go back to what I've said, I've been successful with, which is this whole people focus and this collaboration. And this is that dangerous thing where they always say, don't recruit people like you. But I think those people skills and ability to collaborate in procurement anywhere these days, you've got to have that. I think the reason procurement obviously was successful then has come even more to the fore through the COVID era, and now with the fragility of a lot of supply chains. It's all right being the centre of it, but if you are the centre of it and haven't got those people and collaboration skills, you're going to quickly burn out, right? And it's not going to work. So I think they're always the things I look for. I always go with CVs I only use to go, have you therefore got a history that looks like you understand numbers and negotiations and all that? And it's almost a given, right? When you get, obviously, if you go down through my organisation, it'll be different at different levels. But if I think about the leaders and the leadership that I need, those are the core skills. And then leadership and leaders are the other piece. It's very much sort of people management needs to be a given. How we articulate where we're going, what we're doing, compel people to want to be better and then be better, is that leadership ability. And one of the things I've invested in since I joined is is leadership development for my leadership team. I'm part of it as well. The whole organisation is investing it, so I'm being developed at the same time. And that's because, leadership is really important, and something I'm really passionate about. In terms of, I'm actually almost I don't like the phrase servant leadership, but do you know what I mean? I'm almost there to make everybody else's lives easier. It's not. I've said to my department, it's not about me. You will make more change to what we do than I ever will. I'm here to give you the space, the time, the backing to do it. That's it.
It's a great mindset to have, Richard, in business. Yeah.
When you've got 500 people to to make them feel better about their job and look to the future. And I don't say it hollowly. It is absolutely how I believe. But I believe it's the right way to go.
Yeah, empowering them to make, the commercial decisions, and to you to just support and guide and help where you can, rather than just being. Give
them development and training, give them the backing, and then go, right, go do it. That thing that is the right thing to do, right, go do it, and tell me where the regulation gets in the way, and let's work out, what can we do within the boundaries of what we can do. And we know the supply market's always been this way, but how should we challenge it, and how do we go about it? I've been out at 3 suppliers in the last 3-4 weeks, and it's great to hear their passion. And that's the bit, when I talk about purpose, I assumed it was just in the NHS they have passion. But actually, the passion in the healthcare supply base for health as well was quite overwhelming. And whilst they obviously are corporate organisations, and we all know everybody needs to make money and turn a profit and be doing well, their passion for it is as loud as mine and as what we see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, absolutely. And I guess that shows why you work with those suppliers, because it is a true partnership. And just going back to the point around the management piece, I think that's a really good tip for anyone when they give their team and say, hey, go do some management training, go and take some learns. Sometimes we see it where they'll just sit back. Well, you're involved in it. You're actually doing it yourself, Richard, because you're looking at self-improvement all the time. So it becomes a lot more genuine when you're saying, I want you to invest in yourself and your career and upskilling and learning. I'm also doing that.
Yeah.
So you should always be learning, right? We should always be.
I learn by doing, right? Yeah. I think way back in the early 2000s when I was at IBM, we did the Young Enterprise Scheme supporting local schools. Yep. And I just remember the strapline was learning by doing. And I went, well, that's what I do every day of my career. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I've never been, and I've got a 17 or a 15-year-old who are doing A-levels and GCSEs, and they're okay, right? But I know the elder one is very much learn by doing. So if he sits and learns something and he's told to sit in a classroom, he's okay. He passed his driving test first time with 1 minor. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes the mindset is you learn more by doing than you learn by sitting behind a desk, sort of sitting academically. And look, everybody's got a different mix, and that's why when I'm offering development to my teams, we're doing SIPs, we're offering that to people, both the classroom based, both the management entry level, and then we're saying, well, if you don't want to do that, then there are all of these other. There's central government training you can do, commercial training you can do, and we've got our own academy as well internally. So we're just giving people all the options. So it's not consume via this route and do what you need to do. It's we want you to develop, pick an option, you do what you need to do.
Yeah, amazing. That Young Enterprise Scheme is an incredible initiative. I've been fortunate enough to be involved in the enterprise advisor down here in Dorset and help with local students, because you should be learning from people, it's not just peers of yours in the C-suite. You should be learning from people that are, are students of the profession, and indeed, people like, your kids and stuff. Yeah. You should always be learning, right?
My 15-year-old and his no single-use plastic abuse that I get. Yeah.
What, you get the abuse, or he?
I get the abuse. Yeah, anything. Okay. Could be single-use plastic. It's like, why are you doing that? You do. And I've had. Anyway, I don't need to go about my family having to go about movies, but no. On that point around development, I mean, we've just taken 12 graduates into commercial, so I think it's 24 as a whole in NHS Supply Chain, because that kind of thinking is valuable. I mean, I started out as a graduate at IBM. Actually, it was a really structured scheme. I learned a lot. But did I actually get the chance to input much into IBM's business at the time? Probably not, right? And that's not an offence to IBM. But very much the way I am sort of bringing these people in is don't sit there quietly. You very much need to come in and say what you need to do and what you think is better and what you see as being wrong, and give a generational view that we need. Yeah. So
and give them the confidence to do that as well, isn't it? It's making them feel empowered that they can make those sort of they can make those noises, they can speak, and they can have a voice in the room. Yeah.
And it's it's a commitment to them, and I've told them this: I won't let them get lost in what we do, because as we look to change some of the actions and behaviours that have been around for a long time. Yeah, if we're going to change them, we need to change them to the latest generation of thinking, and so if we can do that, then we should use them as much as we can.
Yeah, well said. From taking it away from NHS supply chain in the broader procurement world now, what do you make of the procurement profession right now outside of NHS? I'm talking I guess maybe more the private sector, but just generally, what is your views on 2024 procurement landscape?
Well, I think it goes back to what I've said. I mean, this whole build since COVID of we always knew we were important. And now we're even more important.
You just needed people to tell you in press conferences during the COVID.
An event to focus on it. No, it's a really interesting one because the most abiding thing that procurement people say is I never set out to be a procurement person, which is true. But I think it's a really pragmatic, business-focused job. And if you are interested in business and enterprise and corporate world, and I mean corporate buy in terms of just big business world, of which public sector sits in, then it's such a great position to be in because you are in the middle of everything going on. And those, going back to what you asked about talent, it's those who see an opportunity and go and get it and get involved. Because, again, how have I progressed through my career? It's generally by just grabbing hold of something I spotted and getting on with it. Go back to the learning by doing. I have some basic commercial core people skills, and I just go and deploy them and do them and change them and get involved. And that's because despite the feedback recently from one of my colleagues, I am inquisitive and I am interested. So that's one of the things that drains on your time, does it? Sometimes you can come across as not inquisitive. But no, it's that. And that's what the procurement profession gives you. We are really central to what's going on. I've never heard or seen such influential people in the roles of CPR. I mean, I went to an event the other week with probably, 15, 20 around a table. And you look at the quality of individuals, but not in the old school of, well, look, haven't I been around a long time and aren't I clever? More, look at the things I'm involved in, how I'm influencing sustainability and resilience and supply chain standards. And do you know what I mean? There's so many things we're involved in. Again, we always touched and were kind of involved in, but we never actually led. And now we've got so much to lead. So, yeah, as people, graduates, how 12 of them joining who none of them have a procurement degree, do you know what I mean? They all have various degrees. Just saying to them, it's a really great job where it isn't ever the same in any company. It's always different. You've always got a slightly different remit and a slightly different scope to influence. So, yeah, in terms of I'll go back to your agile word. It's quite an agile job. You can make it what you want and you can be involved in what you want to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if there's the entrepreneurial spirit and you don't want to sell, then guess what? Buy is the other side of the interesting, the entrepreneurial wheel.
I totally agree. And there's so much that procurement is just capturing. And every time we go on the podcast, we talk to procurement practitioners and leaders like yourself, that there's just so much more that procurement are doing. Rewind, your IBM days, I'm sure when you were going out to market and stuff, it was a lot of sourcing activity and contract management and maybe early adoption of supplier risk management, but never the advancement we have now. We're really at the I don't really like the term the seat at the table, but in terms of that revenue generation and that's the narrative, the conversation procurement having. They're not just there from a cost and a risk mitigation perspective. It's really driving commercially all business decisions, which is where it should be. And it's exciting time ahead for the profession. I think
the innovation is a really good opportunity, getting that market insight and really going and finding out what's out there and working out how to bring that through. I did that at William Hill. I did it at Asda. I did it. Do you know what I mean? I've been lucky to work in relatively forward-thinking organisations. So it's how you find it, embrace it, and then embed it in what you do. It doesn't always have to be the way forward. But I think then those who know me will go, I'm not a technology-first led person, despite having a tech background. And I think where we're going, we've got to focus on being brilliant and supporting the business needs where, again, in any organisation, but then it's bringing through technology at the right time in the right way. There's I'm only beginning personally to learn the minimal side of what AI can bring to.
I was going to ask you on that. Yeah.
again, you've heard what I've said about where we're at as supply chain. It's in the back of my mind, and we're speaking with government commercial about AI uses elsewhere in public sector and aware of that. But there really is some power there, and the myth needs to be busted that this is all about taking out people. It's not. It goes back to what I said about it's about creating time for people to do a brilliant job and to do the things that matter, not filling in forms and not getting basic information and trying to troll suppliers for certain knowledge. That should just happen. And then it's about using that and applying it, because procurement will always be a people job, right? At the level where we're making a difference to organisations, or in my world, making a difference to patients and clinicians' work and lives and work, that's got to be a people job. There's got to be that, and it's about elevating people to be able to do that and be more involved in that than doing the admin, raising POs and doing all the data forms and thing. But yeah, the innovation piece and that how do you bring technology through? Again, we need to be on the forefront of it and not be caught out by it. And
have the right data as well to make sure that you are using AI and the tech in the right way.
I mean,
the right tools.
Yeah. I remember every version of data from IBM days. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
But we're NHS Supply Chain is like every other business. We have a vast amount of data. Structuring it and making sense of it is what the job is of people and systems then to do it. Are we there? No, we're somewhere, but we're not there. When we get there, again, it'll make the jobs of the teams 20% easier. Do you know what I mean? To go and do it. So
reflecting back on your career to date, Richard, you've done a lot. You've worked in a lot of different organisations, different scales and sizes. What would you say your biggest learn's been in your career?
Biggest learning. One is you need to be a professional magpie. Which is professional
magpie. I'm a Newcastle fan, so I'll interpret that in a different way, Richard.
Professional magpies. No, you have to borrow with pride, almost, is what I mean. There's a lot out there, and I mean that across a lot of things. Primarily, I always think about it when people talk to me about how quite like your style as a leader or whatever, and I go, well, it's not. That is my style, which is made up of lots of bits I've learned from different leaders. I always say, in terms of my people focus, came from my very first sort of corporate boss, which was a guy who was my boss on a year out when I did my year out from university at IBM. He was still probably the best people manager I knew. But from that point, I went, well, that's a good piece of what he does, and that, do you know what I mean, she does and he does, and you bolt it all together and you go, actually, I borrow a little bit from everything. And then when I look at all the career I've had and what I now use every day in solving problems at supply chain, some of those hark back to the IBM Blue Book, which is the way of buying, which I was taught in 1990-something, which I won't say. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's still the same things ring true. So no matter the technological advances, no matter I'm buying, as I say, defibrillators rather than servers, or I think it was steel toe cap boots was the first thing I actually bought in IBM. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's still the same principles and the thinking and whatever. So it's be that professional magpie. But the other thing is people matter, right? As a leader, you've got to really care about your people, and you've got to know what matters to them, what makes them tick, and what makes them get up in the morning. But you've also got to know how to collaborate. And I say that's the biggest learning. When I left IBM I can't remember when it was, after whatever 8 or 9 years I'd been there, I was scared because I only believed I was good at my job because of the people I knew. Yeah. And then I realised...
And probably the processes that you had there, they were like your comfort blanket, weren't they? That was
100%. But it was kind of, I know everybody. I didn't know all 15,000, but I knew enough people to do what I did. Then I realised, actually, yes, it was about them, but it was about how you build that network really quickly. And so when I then went to... Link, as it was then became part of Vocalink and MasterCard. Actually, it was just about build that network really quickly, which I did, but just inherently did. And then went, oh, actually, I don't feel that exposed, and it's just about applying it. And then everywhere I've gone, it's just create those connections. For me, it's always be myself. I'm always authentic. I don't pretend to be anybody else than I'm not. And it's like, be authentic, build those networks, and you can just fly. So... it's that ability to collaborate, I would say, is probably, somebody asked me what I would want to have a superpower. If I've got one, it's probably that ability to collaborate pretty quickly and get people on board.
Yeah. build connections. That's what procurement's about, right? That it's building connections.
What life's about, right?
Yeah, totally.
You get richness out of life by connections. And again, this weekend I've just been down to the NFL and been there. And if I look at the mix of people that were there using the tickets that I have, they're not one dimension. They're from lots of different places I've been in my life, and family and friends and whatever. And you just go, that's what it's about. It's about having those, and then they all sit there and chat, and you go, I don't even need to be here now. So it is nice to see that. Yeah,
enriching from different cultures and backgrounds and things. And I think that's what our NHS represents, right? That going back to where you are at the moment, you're clearly going to be working with people there that are from different backgrounds, from everything, nationality, ethnicity, gender, in terms of class, working middle class, I can imagine you've just got such a diversity of thought there, which is refreshing. It's something that's going to help you.
It mirrors our patients, right? The NHS is classless, right? I was actually shared a car with our clinical director the other day, and she said, I've treated sirs and madams, and I've treated homeless people off the street.
Yeah.
That's our customer.
Isn't that powerful? Yeah,
it is, and I say we've got such a diverse range of people. And as I look forward, I'm looking to bring different people in. We had to go or the team had to go and recruit before I joined. The team had to go and recruit over 100 people to fill the organisation structure we now have. They've done that, but they've brought in some really different people. Some people have returned to the system. Some people have stayed within it and moved into supply chain from trusts and ICSs or whatever, but also brought in new people. And the key as I recruit now is the right person for the job. But also if I'm bringing somebody in externally, somebody with a different perspective and a different view.
Yeah. Well, that's what you want, don't you? You don't want public sector going into public. Sometimes that works, and of course that's great. But you want people from, as I say, different diversity of thought. Whether that's from a tech business, whether that's from a consultancy, it doesn't matter. It's more around the people.
No, it is 100%.
So, Richard, we're going to do something new here on the Talent Talks podcast that we're trialing with our guests. So let's see how today goes. Quickfire 5 questions. So here we go. Who is your biggest inspiration?
Stuart Pearce.
Love that.
Do I need to give a why as well?
You can do. I'm intrigued with Stuart Pearce.
Massively a stand-up leader and massively passionate. I was never a Forest fan, but it's like just how he. So passionate in everything he does. Inspirational.
Euro 96 still iconic, that Spain penalty. Yeah. What gets you up each morning?
Purpose. I think I've already talked about it. It just overrides everything.
Love it. One word to describe the future of procurement.
Pivotal.
Really good use. I like that. Yeah, that's the first. That's good. What's the best career advice you've ever received?
Take the opportunity.
If you weren't in procurement, what would you be doing?
Driving either a bus or a train.
Brilliant. Richard, thank you so much for joining me. I've loved it. Loved the chat. Good luck with everything else the rest of the year and beyond at NHS Supply Chain. I really, really appreciate your time today. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed today's show, and we'll be back soon with more Talent Talks podcasts. In the meantime, please hit the subscribe button on your favourite platform. See you soon. Take care.